Hello, my friends. It's April 2nd. I'm Ezra Levant, and welcome to our daily 12 noon Eastern Time briefing on the heavy subjects that we deal with here during this time of pandemic. I'm here at our Rebel World headquarters in Toronto. Our wings are being clipped, as has everyone else's. Whoops, let me turn off my feedback here from my computer. We used to travel the world and bring you the news from all around the world, but not only is that no longer safe to do, but it's actually fairly impossible to do. The reason is they've shut down the airlines. I saw just a heartbreaking video from Calin Romanescu, the president of Air Canada, and whatever criticisms people have about airlines, you know, they had a luggage loss here or a flight was delayed there. You must admit that Air Canada was an impressive airline with a massive global reach for a fairly small country. And in his almost tearful message to frequent flyers, he said they're shutting down all of their foreign flights except for to 5 key international cities, just to keep some basic commerce for the country alive. I think they had over 100 foreign destinations. They're shutting it down to 5. Plus, they're shrinking their American cities. They're shrinking their Canadian cities. There was this one moment in this video where he says, "Don't worry, we're still flying to every province." Imagine that that's considered a win. I think that he said they're grounding 175 aircraft. Just heartbreaking to watch him, who had built up that global network, just to have it all shrunk to nothing because of the Chinese virus. And I say the Chinese virus, not because I'm trying to be provocative, but because rather that is exactly what it is. And by Chinese, I don't mean that the virus itself has an ethnicity. Of course it does not. And I don't even mean that the virus emanated from the country of China, which it did, but that the virus is a pandemic and has gone global and has killed so many people and made ill so many more, precisely because the Chinese Communist Party intervened to stop good doctors on the ground in Wuhan from raising the alarm. It only took really 2 weeks, and we went through the entire timeline the other day together. It only took a couple weeks for doctors in Wuhan, China, to realize they were dealing with a new virus, not the regular flu, not viruses of the past. It didn't take much longer for the virus's DNA to be mapped, which is an important step for doctors. I won't get into the technicalities that are beyond my own knowledge. But that information was withheld from the press, from international health agencies. Doctors were arrested. 8 doctors were arrested in Wuhan within weeks for talking about this virus, even on social media, raising the alarm, talking to others. The Chinese police warned doctors not to alter social harmony. They had to have a clean internet. And because of that, now, by the way, people in Wuhan knew something terrible was afoot. I've seen estimates between 5 and 7 million people in Wuhan. That's a city of 15 million. So between 1/3 and 1/2 the city just left, just fled. And the thing about that is you can't blame them, right? Well, where did they go? Well, they went to other parts of China. And where did they go? Well, they went around the world. And China did not tell the world. China lied. They didn't just hide, because hiding, you could say, I mean, it's an active step to arrest someone. It's an active step to destroy evidence, and it's an active step to delete things. That's bad enough. But then to positively state that the virus was fine, that is a whole other level of malice and criminality, I believe. So it is very much the China virus. Can you go to my, let me just tell you what we do here. For those of you who don't join us regularly, every day at 12 noon I do this live stream where it's much less scripted than my 8 p.m. Eastern show. We play videos that I think of just on the spur of the moment. We go through things in a reality style. It's not scripted. I have a small piece of paper in front of me with a few clips that we have ready should I call on them, but as you know, I often ask our producer, Justin, to get things on the spur of the moment. You can participate too in the chat room to the side of the video box there. And you can do what's called a super chat, which is you chip in a few bucks and your chat gets put in a bright color so I see it out of the corner of my eye, and I make a point of reading all the super chats out loud. And as you know, YouTube shares 70% of the revenues of the super chats with us, so it's actually an important source of revenue for us as we're in these challenging times. I want to start with a little poll that I started on my Twitter feed, and granted, that is not a statistically valid poll because people who follow me are probably more likely to share my point of view and have a certain worldview. So I say, what are you more scared about? The virus, the crashing economy, police surveillance state? And as you can see, 4,529 people have voted, and I tweeted that at 9 a.m. So that was 3 hours ago. Do you want to vote and then see which? So you're worried about police surveillance state. 53% of people in my amateur poll are the most scared of the crashing economy. A third are worried about the surveillance state. Only 13% are worried about the virus. I wonder if that'll change over time. And then can you go to my, Mindy Widowson says, I am not scared about anything. Well, Mindy, you can be scared of something, but manage your fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the proper prioritization of fear. You always need to have some fear. Fear is nature's way of warning you about things, if not to make you stop, at least to make you careful and alert. So we all should be afraid. We should be afraid of the virus, but how afraid is the right question, and what steps can we take to mitigate against the genuine risk? We all should be very afraid of the police and the surveillance state because that's something, once in, it's tough to get out. But can you go to my math on my little tweet about the unemployment rate? I see that whereas last week the unemployment claims in Canada surged by 929,000 people, today we learn that the number has more than doubled. So here's a tweet I wrote. Canada's labor force is 20 million people. It's just slightly more than 20 million. I think it's like 20.3 million people. So that means out of the 37 million Canadians, 20 million people either work or are trying to get work. So that obviously doesn't include children, retirees, or let's say someone is a homemaker who isn't trying to find work. And by work I mean paid work. So in February, 1.1 million were unemployed out of 20 million. A lot of that was in Alberta, unfortunately. The national employment rate was fairly healthy, 5.6%. But in the last 2 weeks, I mentioned a week ago, 929,000 were laid off. That has accelerated. Now an additional 1.2 million have been laid off. So the grand total in just 2 weeks, 2.1 million people have been laid off. And so if my math is right, 1.1 million plus 2.1 million, that's 3.2 million people out of 20 million workers, I think our unemployment rate is 16%. And look what I found. You see, that's the highest since 1933. So I found, click on that. So I found this study here. It's a sort of a blurry old study by Statistics Canada. So this is, look at the date on this. This is from 1992. Do you see right at the top there? It says autumn 1992. So that's why this isn't an HTML document. This is an old printed document. But scroll down. It talks about the historic unemployment rate. So this is a Statistics Canada document. This is historical unemployment rate. So it doesn't have data post-1992. I can assure you there has been no unemployment rate of this sort since. Do you see that graph on the left-hand side? Can you pump up the size just one bit here? I know it's low res. So do you see it's 5, 10, 15, 20, the scale on the left there? So until last month, unemployment was low, 5%, 5.6%. Not as low as it was in the 40s and 50s, but lower than it was for most of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But look at how far back you have to go. So just look at 1940. That's basically when Canada entered the war, right? September 1939. So you can see the unemployment rate just plunged from more than 10% to an extremely low rate, because obviously any able-bodied man was put to work in the war, either as a soldier or on a farm or a factory. And of course, remember, unemployment only includes people in the workforce, so that wouldn't include stay-at-home moms, which were more prevalent back then. So you had a very low unemployment in the war, and then in the post-war time that went up. But look, the last time unemployment was 16% was actually 1933, if I'm not mistaken. It hit 16% in what, 31, 32. It maxed out, I think, at 19.3% in the absolute depth of the Depression. I forget what month of 1933. And it took really 10 years. 10 years of unemployment. It actually ended only because of the war, I put it to you. So this shows unemployment rates from 1921, as you can see. From 1921 to 1992. From 1992 to 2020 is really unimportant for our purposes. But what I'm saying to you is that we already have the highest unemployment rate since 1933, and that is just really 2 weeks into this crisis. Do you doubt that next week will lead to further unemployment? How could it not? How could it not? What will it be, another million? Every million unemployed is another 5%. I guess what I'm saying is I think that Canada's unemployment rate could actually hit 20% next week, which would be the highest unemployment rate ever, or at least in the last century. I don't know what unemployment was like 120 years ago. I don't even know how reliable the statistics would be that long ago. We know the 70s were a challenging economic time, stagflation and whatnot. We know the war put men to work, including in very wasteful productions. I mean, everyone was working in the war, and the war was morally important, but of course, war is about the most wasteful thing humans can do with their talents and energies in industry. This is the highest unemployment we have had since the Great Depression, and how can I do anything other than imagine it will be worse next week and then worse again the week after? How can that possibly be the case? What was the clip I asked for from Jeff that I copied to you from Trudeau's press conference this morning? And if you have it, go ahead and run it. Do you have it? Okay. So every day Justin Trudeau gets out of his pajamas for 1 hour. He steps outside his cottage. That's what they call his 22-room mansion. He talks to the press for about half an hour, and then he goes back to his room. He doesn't have coronavirus. He hasn't tested positive for it, and he's been in self-hiding for 3 weeks. Quarantine's only 2 weeks, but he never had the bug in the first place. So here's something he said this morning. Take a look.
To come. Your health minister said that the healthcare system is not in a position to deal with a huge surge. Now, why is it there wasn't enough PPE in the national stockpile? Well, I think that many governments around the world are going to be reflecting on that very issue once we come through this. And we will certainly learn a great deal from this experience and this crisis. For us, the essential thing right now is to ensure that we are able to deliver the necessary equipment to the healthcare system, that we try and flatten that curve as much as possible so that we will not end up in a situation where our hospitals and our healthcare system are overwhelmed and we no longer are able to care for people who are seriously affected by COVID-19. And that's why everything we're doing right now.
So the question was, actually, can you play the question again? Just play that from the beginning. It was about PPE, which is personal protection equipment. So that's another way of saying face masks, scrubs, and goggles. Play that from the beginning. I want to get the question exactly. Go ahead.
Your health minister said that the healthcare system is not in a position to deal with a huge surge. Now, why is it there wasn't enough?
So the question is, your health minister says that the health system is not ready to deal with this. Why is that the case? Especially with regards to PPE, face masks. That's a good question. Now, you and I know the answer because we've been pointing out that Justin Trudeau put 16 tons of face masks. Face masks are very light. What would they weigh, a couple ounces? Trudeau put 16 tons of personal protective gear on a plane and boasted about it on February 9th. To support China's ongoing response, Canada has deployed approximately 16 tons of personal protective equipment, such as clothing, face shields, masks, goggles, and gloves, to the country. The country being China. So we sent our national stockpile to China and did not replenish the stockpile. So the question by whatever reporter that was, en français, was, why are we unprepared? Now, we know the answer, but did you notice how Trudeau answers pretty much any question about his own failures? He removes himself from the person who has to be accountable. Your health minister said we have no masks. Why is that happening? Now, a responsible person, an accountable person, a buck stops here person, an executive, a chief executive of the country, or at least of the government, should answer that. But Trudeau took himself out as the actor, the decider, the executive, the prime minister, and put himself over here as an observer, a fellow pundit, someone who, well, governments everywhere will have to reflect on that, and we will have to learn what lessons there are, but that's for another time. Hang on. We have to learn? You mean the rest of us have to learn a lesson? It's always that way when he does something. When he groped Rose Knight in British Columbia, what was the name of that town up there? The Kokanee. Anyway, he groped Rose Knight in British Columbia, and he admitted it, and he was finally asked about it, and he said, we have a lot to learn, we. Who's we? I didn't grope in Creston, BC, thank you. We don't have, I didn't grope anyone in Creston, BC. I don't have anything to learn from that. I want to know about his accountability. This is a learning moment for all of us. No. You're not like a passive observer here. You're not in the peanut gallery. You are the chief executive of the Canadian government. And when you are asked about responsibility, you say, a lot of people have to answer that question, and I'm looking forward to the answers just as much as you are. You know what, it's, he's used that excuse so many times. It was interesting when he was charged and convicted for conflict of interest for accepting a free vacation in secret from the billionaire Aga Khan in the Bahamas. $100,000 vacation at least, probably $200,000 vacation. One of his, and the reason that was wrong is you can't take, you can't take bribes. And another reason that was wrong especially is that the Aga Khan, who, by the way, I respect, he's a huge lobbyist. He's lobbying the Canadian government all the time. He's getting grants and gifts from the Canadian government, money. So when Trudeau and his wife say, give me a free vacation on your billionaire island, by the way, it was Trudeau who suggested it. The Aga Khan would never do anything so crooked. The Aga Khan said, sure, I guess. The reason that was doubly bad is not just that it was accepting a huge gift in secret, it's that you would think there's a quid pro quo. The Aga Khan is trying to get tens of millions of dollars in grants from the Canadian government, and the guy who's sitting in the chair for the Canadian government just asked for a freebie worth 200 grand. There's an implied quid pro quo there. That's why it's corrupt. As part of his legal defense, Justin Trudeau actually stated, and I don't propose to send you on this mission unless you want to do it, in the Trudeau Report, that's the name of the Ethics Commissioner's first investigation into Trudeau. His second one was about the SNC Lavalin. In the first investigation and conviction of Trudeau for conflict of interest, his defense was, I'm just ceremonial. If you can find that actually, Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner Trudeau Report, Volume 1, open the document and then word search ceremonial. Because I don't think people are believing me when I say Justin Trudeau literally argued that he could not have been in a conflict of interest, it could not have actually been a bribe, because Trudeau really doesn't even know anything that's going on. He wouldn't have understood what the Aga Khan was saying. Trudeau doesn't actually do the machinery of government. He just sort of slaps people on the back, smiles, takes a selfie, and has a ceremonial role. Now that is not legally accurate, that's not politically accurate, but maybe he thinks that's how it is. So when he's asked, why don't we have any masks? No reporter has the courage to say, why did you give all our masks to China? He doesn't answer from a place of personal responsibility. Yeah, perfect. Let me read this. So this is from the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and you can see it's called the Trudeau Report, made under the Conflict of Interest Act. He said his role in any meeting is to further develop a relationship between the individual and Canada. Mr. Trudeau views his involvement with the Aga Khan and his Canadian institutions as ceremonial in nature, similar to interactions he would have with any global leader or distinguished global citizen. So, thanks very much. Good, you found that so quickly. So that's Trudeau's way of saying, I couldn't have been bribed, because he was talking about blah, 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 money, lobbying program, grant, and I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just an unfrozen caveman politician. I'm unfamiliar with these things you talk about, like bribes. I'm just here for ceremonial adornment. So yeah, it's bad enough when he's a crook taking $100,000, $200,000 free vacations in secret. But what happens when he actually sends away all our masks to China, and so we have none? Oh, a lot of us will have to reflect on our decisions in the appropriate time. No, I don't have to reflect on my decision to send 16 tons of face masks to China, because I didn't send 16 tons of face masks to China. I don't have any deep introspection to do on the matter. Let's read some super chats. Lionel de Grand Pre, $5. You just witnessed what is called intestinal yoga, shipping personal protection equipment. This is why Snowball is hiding. Yeah. Hot Soup, $5. Is he the Prime Minister or a feudal lord stepping out of his manor house to address the nervous peasants? Well, yeah, and like I said, unemployment by my calculations is at 16%, never this high since the Great Depression. When it gets to 20%, God forbid, next week, and then God forbid it goes higher, God forbid, may it not do so, but how could it not? At a certain point in time, it turns to anger. And the house pets in the CBC and CTV and Global who says, what's it like to be so awesome? Hey, thanks for getting out of your pajamas. Okay, so you're going back in your house now and won't see you for 23 hours? Hey, no problem. I think that when unemployment is 20%, 25%, the kind of lapdog media you're seeing in Ottawa these days will cease to be acceptable to the Canadian people, at least to the 25% who will be jobless. Sport fund, $100. Are we paying for the equipment is sending us, Canada? How do we know that they are not the faulty test kits that were returned by European countries? You're talking about the handful of masks that China has sent back here. Well, that's the thing. Can we call up that clip of that guy from the face mask factory in China putting his foot on all the masks? I have several concerns with Chinese equipment. The first is, so much of it is counterfeit, so much of it is junk. I've seen reports that Chinese factories are making shoddy equipment, but putting 3M, you know, the American industrial company, 3M labels on it, so you think it's made in America quality, but it's Chinese crap. It's just like, you know, if you've ever been to China, there's massive stores that have nothing but fake Western brands, fake Gucci, fake Prada. I don't even know all the brands, but there's, when I was in Beijing actually, it was an official government tour stop. You go to this, it was this 7-story mega store. Every single level on this mega store was a different kind of counterfeit. So these people weren't doing it in the black market. This was the official way. And you know, you would see a Starbucks. And you go, oh good, Starbucks. Okay, is that the real Starbucks? Or is that literally some guy who put up a Starbucks logo just to hornswoggle either tourists or locals? Yeah, look at this. So here's a guy in a Chinese face mask factory taking face masks, wiping the bottom of his feet on them, laughing about it. He's not particularly hygienic himself. He's not in scrubs. He's wearing his street clothes. So I'm not sure how hygienic the factory is, but I know for a fact the bottom of his shoes aren't hygienic, and he's laughing. And so yeah, is it from this factory? Is this where China, this guy's laughing because I'm pretty sure that he has some affection and you know, national affiliation for his fellow Chinese. I think he's laughing because he knows those are for export, don't you think? All right. Oh, there's one more super chat. Let me just check my email. Thank you, Justin, for that. I'm just catching up. Thank you for that. By the way, I put yesterday's 8 p.m. show. We're putting that on the internet in full because I got so much positive feedback. Some of it was a recap of what we looked at yesterday. Namely, that incredible propaganda video of the bat virus catcher and the study by 2 scholars in Wuhan about the provenance of the bats, the origins of the bat virus. Terry Rude, you are a warrior. May God bless and heal your land. Well, thank you very much, Terry. Fraser McBurney, you load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. So Justin, don't call me, I just can't go. It's atrocious, and of course our media party are lapdogs. So let's just, so we talked about the unemployment numbers. Now I want to show you a story in the Globe and Mail. Do you have the Globe and Mail story about 150 odd flights with the virus on it? Let's just show our people that story here. Since March 13th, so that's 158 flights have come into Canada with a confirmed case of the virus on board. Let's just read the first sentence. The number of flights into Canada bearing people with confirmed infections of the virus, COVID-19, continues to rise, including 2 repatriation flights for Canadians stranded abroad amid pandemic travel restrictions. To which I would say, what travel restrictions? There were 158 international flights to Canada between March 13 and 27, on which at least one person was found to be infected with the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Two of the flights from Ecuador on March 27 and Peru on March 26, that's just a week ago, were Air Canada repatriation flights organized by Ottawa to bring home Canadians stranded after international borders closed and flights were canceled because of civil aviation restrictions intended to limit the virus. Others were commercial flights in which the government played no role. Airlines that operate the flights say they are complying with Ottawa's request for help and are subjecting passengers to government-mandated health questionnaires, but are not qualified nor required to take a passenger's temperature. The union representing flight attendants says the workers need better protection from the virus, including properly fitted gloves, surgical gowns, N95 masks, and face shields, as well as training of the use of the equipment. More than 1,000 flight attendants who worked flights with COVID-19 on board have been put into 14-day quarantines in recent weeks, said Wesley Leoski, head of Air Canada component of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. It's out of control. I won't read you the whole story, but yeah, so 1,000 flight attendants that we know of are in quarantine. And I mentioned earlier that Air Canada is in fact laying off, what was it, 14,000 people? Just awful. Now, it is correct that Air Canada, their specialty is flying planes. Their specialty is not medical exams. But they have not even been asked to do things like take the temperature of passengers. I want to tell you, so you'll notice what's so interesting. Here is that every day on this show, I go to yvr.ca, which is the publicly available website for Vancouver. In fact, why don't we do that now, just while we're talking about it. I also go to torontopearson.com. I could look at either right now if you want it. Why don't we go to torontopearson.com? Oh, there's YVR. Arrivals. So yeah, that's fine. Let's scroll down here. So Toronto, Nanaimo, Calgary, Toronto, Seattle, Tokyo. I'm actually not worried about Tokyo, to tell you the truth. Dallas, Fort Worth, Seattle again. Seoul. I'm not worried about the Koreans. I know these are places that they have a lot of infections, but those places actually are deadly serious in fighting it and hardcore with the quarantines. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Yeah, there's a London flight there. But what really worries me are the China flights. Look at that. Oh my God, Xiamen. That's by Xiamen Air. Can you, and here's what we do. So 6:40 p.m., can you highlight MF 805? And then go to FlightAware.com. So we're just doing this in real time. We're just doing this together. You can do this yourself. Go to yvr.ca, grab a flight from China, grab that flight number, and then go to the website FlightAware, and then just paste it right in there. So Xiamen Air 805, en route and on time, arriving in over 8 hours from Xiamen, China, to Vancouver, Canada. You see the little picture of the airplane there? So it's been flying for 1 hour and 57 minutes. Do you see that? Total flight time, 10 hours, 55 minutes. So there's 8 hours, 58 minutes remaining, 5,000 miles to go. It's going to land tonight at 6:31 p.m. Pacific time. And scroll down to see the live map. So it is, looks like it's over the sea right now. Just zoom in, I'm just curious. So that's the flight path. That's because of the curvature of the Earth. It looks curved, but that's actually the shortest. So it looks like it's over South Korea right now. It just passed over the Korean peninsula. If my, yeah, zoom in even closer. Let's see the, what is that it's over, if we can, it's not that important. I'm just curious. Yeah, I think, oh, it's over Japan right now, I think. I think that's Japan. I think that thing on the left there, I think that's South Korea and North Korea just above it. So that airplane, if I know my geography, is now over Japan, and it's headed to Vancouver. Now scroll down. What aircraft is it? Boeing 787-9, twin jet forwards. That's an outstanding airplane. I'll be honest, it's my favorite airplane. Very modern, Boeing plane. Going from memory, it carries 290 passengers. So that lands at, what do we say, 6:30 p.m.? Now let me make an incredibly important point, if I may. If you're flying from Xiamen to Canada, there's a good chance your final destination is indeed Vancouver. There's a large Chinese community in Vancouver. Vancouver's a great city. Maybe that's the end of your destination. But just as possibly, perhaps just as likely, your final destination is Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Regina, Toronto, Montreal, Halifax, any other city. Obviously, there's no Xiamen to Calgary flights, Xiamen to Halifax. There wouldn't be enough to warrant that. So the plane lands, let's say there's 200 passengers on the plane. I don't know. I think that plane has a capacity for 290. Let's say there's 200. Let's say there's 100 people on the plane. Plane lands in Vancouver. Let's say 50 of them go home to the greater Vancouver area, lower mainland as they say. All right. Now maybe 2 get on another plane to go to Victoria. And let's say 5 get on a plane to go to Calgary and 5 to Edmonton, and maybe 20 to Toronto, and maybe 5 to Montreal and 5 to Halifax. So these people came on a plane that we just saw in the Globe and Mail. Almost all these planes have someone who's sick, right? They just said 150 plus flights in like 2 weeks. Of course. And there's no screening. They're just being asked a question, are you sick? They're not taking the temperature. So they land in Vancouver and then they get on other flights. Unbeknownst to people on those domestic flights, there are people from this Chinese flight. They're not told. They don't know. Okay, we got Pearson. Let's do Pearson. So this is just TorontoPearson.com. Karachi, Pakistan, that's landing at 12:30 p.m. Let's scroll through. So the red ones are canceled. So you can see a lot of flights are canceled. Shanghai, China, that flight is canceled, I'm pleased to say. Denver, so the red means canceled, the yellow means delayed. Calgary, Edmonton, Frankfurt, so there's a Frankfurt flight. You know, here, so we're doing the same. The Korean flight is canceled. Amsterdam, the flight from Amsterdam is still coming. Karachi, 2 flights today from Pakistan. 2 flights from Pakistan today. You're a faster reader than me. There's London, Ontario. So Mexico City canceled, Chicago canceled, New York canceled, Montreal is a go, Vancouver is a go. So hold up there for a second. So look at this, for example. That Vancouver flight is set to land at 7:30. So that would not be a oh my God, look at that. Look at that. That's a code share with Air China CA 7465. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Scroll down a bit. Scroll down. A couple more. Heathrow, that is the Heathrow flight. British Airways. Manila flight canceled. Okay, now I want to show you, because we've mentioned Pakistan, we've mentioned Amsterdam, London, and China. Our David Menzies goes to the airport every day. And with a very simple, I got to tell you, journalism, guys, it's actually not hard. I have never been to journalism school, so maybe there's something they teach the kids that I don't know. They sure don't teach them spelling, I'll tell you that. What are they teaching? I don't know. How to ask questions, who, what, why, where, when, and how. Those are the basics. They're certainly not teaching nonpartisanship these days. I don't really know what they teach. But to me, the simpler the question, the better. Because the more you can simplify, you're getting to the core issue. So when David Menzies goes to the airport in Toronto, And Kian went to the airport in Calgary the other day. There's no tricky questions. Just, where are you from? Did they screen you? Canada's health minister said they were giving masks to people getting onto the connecting flights. Is that true? What did they tell you? Really, I think a child, like a clever child, could ask those. I don't know why every reporter in the country or every news outlet in the country isn't there. David's the only one there. Only one there. And he's been going almost every day. Let me show you some of his latest questions. And I haven't actually watched Kian's from Calgary, so let's watch that after. Actually, I did watch Kian's. So let's watch David's and then let's watch Kian's. Here we go.
David Menzies for Rebel News here at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. Well, it is Monday, April the 1st, and I've dropped by to file one of my daily reports on what security measures are being taken now that we're struggling with the coronavirus. And I am very happy to report that this just in, passengers are having their temperatures taken when they go through customs. That masks like the one I'm wearing are being handed out to everyone. That they are being thoroughly screened in their native tongue. Oh, sorry, folks, I couldn't resist. April Fools. No, I don't think anything like that has happened in the last 24 hours. That certainly wasn't the case that I ran into yesterday with flights coming in from London and Peking. But in about a half an hour or so, flights from Frankfurt, Germany, and the UK are going to be touching down here at Pearson. And I will interview these arrivals and see what, if anything, has changed in terms of enhanced screening. But I'm afraid to predict, folks, that it's probably going to be a case of the same old, the same old. Ma'am, can you tell me if you went through any kind of enhanced screening measures when you came through customs here?
Yes, they made us fill out some forms, and they did more of the checking at Germany, though, more of the physical screening and checking.
No, not really. They gave like a form and gave information about it, so self-isolating for 14 days.
No special screening, nothing, no.
In Toronto?
That's right, yes.
Not really anything like that, but they told us to fill out a form.
Okay.
And they told also to stay at home for 14 days, self-quarantine. Okay. That's it, and there is no screening, nothing.
Just the typical social distancing and self-isolation.
Not really, we just fill up the form actually, and then was provided another form to just get introduction what we have to do after landing.
Actually here, right in Canada,
Yes, ma'am.
they gave some explanation about coronavirus and they asked to stay at home for 2 weeks at least.
Okay.
Because I did not have any symptoms of coronavirus. So they said you will just stay at home for 2 weeks.
Did they also ask you if you had any symptoms or?
Sure.
And did they mention anything about the rules of the self-quarantine?
Yeah, we all got handouts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got color handouts. Have you seen them?
I have seen the handouts, but was there also verbal instructions in addition to the handouts, sir?
Fill out a form. Yeah, we had to fill out a form saying where we live and how to contact us, that they were going to follow up. And if we didn't fill out the form, then we were going to sit down in that plane and sit there till it was done.
Yes, they actually gave us some pamphlets too that we can view for the self-isolation for 14 days.
Did they tell you it was immediately you can't even stop for gas or groceries on the way home?
No, you can't stop for anything, you have to stay home.
And did they tell you you have to go straight home from the airport? You can't even stop for food or gas?
Yeah, they said no, we cannot stop anywhere.
They tell us everything. We cannot stop for anything. Go straight home and stay inside for 14 days, separate room.
Yes, exactly. They explained, yes.
Did you see anyone being handed out masks like the kind we're wearing right now?
No.
Asymptomatic passengers are given public health advice, including the order to quarantine when they get to their final destination, along with a mask, and told to don the mask should they become ill at any point of their onward travel.
No, I didn't. No.
No, not for passengers, no.
No, I have not seen them.
And, sir, did you notice any of the agents that is giving out masks to people, the kind of masks you and I are wearing?
No, nothing at all. No mask were given, no gloves, nothing.
I don't see anybody. I didn't see that. No, I didn't see that. No, but everybody had mask on the plane.
No.
No, we did not offer the mask anyway. Even those masks, we have to get personally. Yeah, that's everything right now. Yeah.
Did you have your temperature remotely taken?
No.
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 No temperatures were small.
No, they ask us for everything, but no, I didn't see anybody to. They ask for everything, if cough or fever or anything like that, but no.
No, I didn't notice that. No.
Did you notice if anyone remotely took your temperature when you were there?
Yes, actually, when I was flying from Iran, they checked my temperature.
Oh, you're coming in from Iran via Frankfurt. Oh, okay then. So that's interesting. Iran seems to be taking it more strict than Canada, because I don't think we're taking temperature here at this airport.
No, I did not notice anyone take temperature here.
Okay then.
Yeah.
And what about having your temperature remotely checked? Did you get that done?
Not in this country. I'm coming from Mozambique.
Okay.
So I've flown halfway around the world, and I got my forehead beeped on the way down and all the way back except for here.
You know, I find that very interesting, sir, that in Mozambique you got this kind of extra screening. Not here. Do you think the Canadian authorities are taking this COVID-19 as serious as they should?
I can't speak to the local authorities because I've only been in Canada for 20 minutes.
Right. But by the same token, you didn't get your temperature checked here, but you got it checked in Mozambique, right?
And Lisbon and elsewhere.
Oh, sounds like everywhere except here.
Well, yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's that Yogi Berra quote.
That's quite something.
It's
Mozambique,
déjà vu
I've never
all
been
over
there,
again.
but I know where it is on the map. That's southern Africa. That's just northeast of South Africa. I think it's just across the strait from Madagascar. That is a faraway place, very far. And did you hear his journey home? I don't even what are they doing in Mozambique? Is he in mining? Do they have oil there? I just don't know anything about that country, other than in Scrabble, it's got the Z and the Q. He flew from Mozambique. Sounds like he went from there to Lisbon. That's in Portugal. That's extremely far. That's on the west coast of Iberia. And then I think he went from Lisbon he went to Frankfurt. I think that's the flight that was landing there, or to London. So he went Mozambique, Lisbon, then Frankfurt or London, and then if it's London, it's 7 hours. If it's Frankfurt, it's probably 8 hours. That guy spent 2 days in transit. And did you hear what he said? In all those steps in Mozambique, what's the capital of Mozambique? I don't know. Maputo. So he comes in from Maputo to Lisbon, to Frankfurt, to Toronto. They take his temperature in Maputo. They take his temperature in Lisbon. They take his temperature in, I don't think he mentioned his third city, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, London.
Kean Bexley for Rebel News.
But he lands here and nothing. No temperature? Yeah, look at that. That's a long way. Yeah, I would look at that's just like, that's almost the other side of the world, really. He went all the way from there to Lisbon. Lisbon, yeah, it's just an incredible journey he's had. And we're the only idiots in that whole chain that didn't test him. Why? Are we not richer than Maputo, Mozambique? Lisbon is Portugal is not the richest country in the European Union, but it is a modern country. Obviously, if his third stop was Frankfurt, Amsterdam, or London, those are three of the leading cities of Europe. We can't check a guy who just came in from Africa. We can't check him. All right, here's Kian doing the same thing in Calgary.
Kian Bexley for Rebel News. I'm here at the Calgary International Airport, where I'm here to speak with folks who are arriving on international flights from both Seattle and Houston. I'm here today specifically to see what the process is like behind these closed doors. Behind me, you can see this is where they arrive from the international arrivals. They go through customs, and there's a process that the government says exists, and then in practice, there's a totally different process. We've been told by the Federal Minister of Health that masks are being distributed to folks who are arriving in Canada to one of the 4 designated international airports, because Canada only has 4 right now. And those people who are then connecting to a separate place will be given surgical masks.
Asymptomatic passengers are given public health advice, including the order to quarantine when they get to their final destination, along with a mask.
According to the feds, that's what's happening. We're arriving here, and just on a quick glance of the people arriving, most of them aren't wearing masks, and the ones that they are wearing are all sort of fashioned differently. Either they're homemade bandana masks, or they look completely different from one another, which means it's not the bureaucracy that's giving it to them. I'm going to go speak with a few people arriving now. The doors are opening. We'll see what they have to say. What did the federal government tell you you had to do?
The government asked me to fill out a form indicating whether I felt ill or not, asking me how long I'd been out of the country, where I could be reached when I was in the country. They gave me verbal information in terms of fines that would be levied if I didn't stay in my yard.
So it is basically the same information. Be careful, self-isolate for 14 days.
Once you came to the border, what did they tell you your obligations were?
Oh, we're going to quarantine for 14 days in place in your home.
Did you come from the flight from Seattle?
No, Houston.
Houston?
Yeah.
Was there social distancing on the plane?
The plane was empty. There was 20 people on the plane.
Oh yeah, there was hardly anybody on the flight.
I came on the flight from Amsterdam, but it was like really few people traveling. Yeah, I'm glad that it was not cancelled. Like altogether, maybe 20 in the whole plane.
And only 4 of them have come out, which means that the rest of them are connecting to other points in Canada. There was actually more folks on the KLM crew that came out of these gates than there were passengers. It was unbelievable. When you come through the customs room over there, I've done it myself, there's a touch screen. Are they still using those?
Yes.
Yes.
Still using screens, yeah.
We were told that the federal government was handing out masks back there. Did you see any evidence of that?
No, there wasn't.
As the doctor has illustrated, asymptomatic passengers are given public health advice, including the order to quarantine when they get to their final destination, along with a mask.
I saw no evidence of any masks being distributed, no.
No, we brought our own masks from Hawaii.
No, I didn't see masks to be handed out.
Where are you headed?
Saskatoon.
Saskatoon, okay. So that's interesting, because we were told specifically that passengers who are connecting flights would get masks from the feds.
No.
Now today, from what we've been seeing on flight tracker websites, was the first day that no flights from China came to Canada. Now, a few from Hong Kong did, but that's not the same thing. It's interesting because it's completely because of a lack of demand and not because of government regulation. Justin Trudeau was late to the game at every stage of this crisis, from closing the borders to closing the border holes at Roxham Road to banning foreign nationals. He was about 2 weeks behind, and Canadians are now paying the price. Even though he's been at home with nothing to do, he still isn't able to run a country. If you want to stay up to date with everything regarding the coronavirus, the Wuhan coronavirus, you can stay up to date at Rebel News.
Why isn't that? I mean, I understand repatriation, like that guy from Mozambique. I get it. He's a Canadian guy. You just can't get home from Mozambique like that. He's obviously a Canadian national. But why are there still flights every few, I'd say now a couple a day from China. Why? I mean, why still? And put the Globe story back up, please. As the Globe and Mail pointed out, every one of these flights practically is infected, including some of the special repatriation flights. March 13th, 158 flights have a confirmed case. And the thing is, how would they even know? Because they're not checking or testing. 158 flights that they know about since March 13th. That's, is that exactly 3 weeks? So there was 18 more days of March plus 2. So in less than 3 weeks, 158 flights. How long have we been doing this flight thing for a couple weeks now. Every day we've been shouting into the wind. I showed you Kian and David. I think both of those were recorded yesterday. It's all becoming a bit of a blur to me. Kian was a couple days ago, and but it's still happening. We showed you both the Toronto and the Vancouver airports, and we went on to FlightAware, which is a flight tracker, and showed you the flight coming from Xiamen, Boeing 787. 2 flights today from Pakistan alone to Toronto. What's interesting, did you see that one woman who said she's coming from Tehran, from Iran? Iran, after China, probably has the second largest number of cases in the world. I don't believe that China has fewer than America, and I don't believe that Iran has fewer than Italy, because both China and Iran are dictatorships, and their governments rely on secrecy and lies. So the fact that there's still flights coming from Iran is very interesting to me. Obviously, there's no direct flights from Iran to Canada. I don't even know if a plane could fly that far, frankly. So she went through, do you remember what city she said? I think she flew through Frankfurt. It doesn't even matter. She said she was tested in Iran, but not here. So someone's coming from Iran. Can you send a note to Jeff, Mocha, and Efren to clip that lady and as a social cut, and to put that on Twitter? And the headline on that is, flights still coming from Iran with no screening. That lady seemed like a very nice lady, by the way. In fact, one of the things I find most interesting is so many of the people that David and Kian talk to at the airports, they're conscientious. They know we're in a difficult spot. They are conscientious enough to avail themselves of masks and to be worried and careful. The unifying characteristic of all these people is certainly not malice and not carelessness or negligence, but deep concern and disbelief that Canada isn't doing anything. So that lady, I think the headline there is, "Hey Canada." Okay, it's already up. Great. That's I'll check that out. Thanks. A million thoughts running through my mind. There's one more clip. Remember when it was a couple days ago when David saw the flight from China, and those Chinese guys. You know the one we used. All these, and maybe you grab a social media cut. I certainly tweeted it. All these guys from China were in disbelief that we had no safeguards whatsoever. They obviously are glad to be here. They don't buy the Chinese propaganda that it's safer over there. We should show some more Harry Chan clips. Remind me to show more clips from Harry Chan tomorrow. He's a Chinese dissident who gets all these great videos. A couple days ago, David was at the airport, and a flight from, I don't know if it was Beijing or Shanghai, just landed, and he talked to them. Every one of them was masked up. We got it? Go ahead. Let's look.
China. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, did you go through any kind of enhanced screening measures coming through customs?
No.
Extra screening? I don't think so.
No?
No.
It's normal, just normal.
Oh, just normal, even though there's a global pandemic.
I didn't really notice, but I do get some papers.
Did anyone take your temperature here at the airport, ma'am?
No.
Did they take your temperature remotely, perhaps?
No, didn't.
No.
No.
Now, did they take your temperature at all or anything like that?
I didn't notice.
Do you think it's the screening is more rigorous in China than here in Canada? Is it stricter in China?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Of course, yeah.
From China?
Yeah.
Is it stricter in China?
did you go
Of
through-
course. How could it not be? The only thing that's been done in Canada is they get some pamphlets. As if they're even going to read them. All right, it's 1 o'clock. 2 last super chats. Me Villap, $10. With more than 1 million Canadians losing their jobs in the last 2 weeks. That salary increase of the MPs is just outrageous, obscene. They should all be kicked from Parliament. Well, it's 2.1 million Canadians, I'm so sorry to say, or 2.2 million, I forget. And Man Kramer, 40, I think that's rupees, so thank you very much. All right, my friends, well, thank you for joining today. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to work on the 8 p.m. show that I do every day. And I hope you'll tune in to our other videos. I think David went to the airport again this morning. There was a flight from Ethiopia that came in. We haven't uploaded that footage yet. We're still editing it. And we have stories from around the country and around the world. We put up yesterday an interview with a senior nurse from Taiwan, who's now in Vancouver, who is describing some of the interesting methods they're using in Taiwan. As you know, Taiwan, which is a country of 25 million people, right across the Strait of Formosa from China, very integrated with China, they have managed to keep their death rate from coronavirus to 5. Not 5,000 or 500, but 5 souls. And of course, 5 deaths is, any death is a tragedy. But in this pandemic, to have only 5 deaths while your schools are all open, while your restaurants are all open, maybe we should learn a little bit more from them and listen a little less to the communist liars in the People's Republic of China. All right, folks, till next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, stay healthy and keep fighting for freedom.